Hello, hello. Good evening. Welcome to my latest stream. It's been, I've got probably about 2 weeks, maybe more, since I did a stream. And to be fair, the price has only really not done a lot, so it's not a horrendous gap. And really all the levels that I've kind of talked to you about are still in play anyway. So there's not a great deal new. And obviously we have FOMC coming in tonight, and I'm not gonna guess what's going to happen because frankly they're like looking at all the charts, like I don't know. So I've been away, I was away the week before last just for an extended weekend, 5 days, and then I was away last weekend, so I'm a little bit out of touch with the market. But well, let's say I'm not sure if I feel like I'm a little out of touch with the market, but the market's also feeling like a mess, so I'm not sure if it's me being out of touch or if it's the market. And the reason I say that, just because for anyone who follows me, you know I look a lot for confluence across the market. And it's been difficult over this month particularly. The confidence hasn't been there, so it hasn't really given me a good sense of where we're going. And just going here to the indices, like so between the dollar, the indices, TradFi in general, and then crypto, obviously, and Bitcoin, I haven't had the best sense of what's going to happen. And really, I mean, everything's in consolidation. Well, the indices just keep pushing up. Bitcoin hasn't followed this time. Like it does seem to follow, but it follows a little bit like belatedly, and obviously not following with the breakouts because it's just staying below all-time high. S&P, Nasdaq, all the US indices have continued to push. I mean, even UK was pushing. All the others are a little bit different. The Japanese yen has been really pushing. But, so like now, normally when we've got a massive sort of push up like this, when you have something like FOMC coming in, you expect a massive reversal. And that's fine. Maybe we're going to get that. But I'm a little bit kind of apprehensive because obviously like things being at all-time high, there's no supply, so I can't, it's not like I can see things coming into resistance. So S&P that we've got at the top here and Nasdaq, they've come down today, but are they going to bounce, wick up, and then potentially reverse later this week? I'm not sure if there's news later in the week. And we might, obviously, we get the interest rates at 7 o'clock, so in half an hour my time. And then we get the conference at 7:30, half an hour later. Excuse me. So it's possible we get the bounce. It's possible we get a bounce, and then for the actual rate, I definitely feel like the rate is priced in. So unless there's something, I think there's like 94% or 96% chance of it being 0.25 decrease. If it's not that, like if it's 0 or 0.5, I think it's probably unlikely. The only thing is the jobs results. So the jobs results were so bad, it's possible they drop it more. But again, is that priced in? Even when the jobs results came out, like the dollar dropped further. So let's go and have a look at the dollar chart. So this is the dollar. So what am I on here? The 2-week. So the dollar, and again, a higher time frame, this is challenging anyway. So we're coming in and we have bounced already on this annual zone. And obviously it doesn't have to bounce on the top of the zone. And, structurally, there's sort of other things. It's at the top of the range. Maybe it wants to come back down to the lower zone in the bigger picture. We've got this sort of long trend line, which it seems to be breaking now. How valid that is, I'm not sure. But again, it's coming back into an annual zone. So I'm pretty reluctant to be going, okay, let's short the dollar right here. It's one thing to short retest, but to short the dollar now after it's had, like the 2-week candle is very down. I guess that most of that's this week, yeah. So it's possible it takes out this low and swing fails. It's possible it drops lower into the annual zone. But like I say, this is somewhere I'm looking for longs, not looking for shorts. However, and in addition, it's left this sort of trend line of stops above, and we did see similar on the majors actually, where they kind of went like this. So again, that's a possibility. But yeah, I just don't really want to preempt it at the moment. So we've got half an hour to go. And then we'll see. And, I've kind of said, there's so much anticipation of this, like maybe it won't do anything. Maybe it's really just going to mess around in here. I don't know. Just to sort of throw everyone off. Excuse me, just having my protein shake into the gym. Yeah, so that's the dollar. Gold and silver obviously just keep running. Gold's at all-time high, keeps going. I tried there was a 4-hour supply in here, and the market looked like maybe it will drop back a bit. So I tried a little short alert there, which did work, but didn't get very far. And then came back up, and then similarly, silver's in this big weekly supply. But yeah, got a long entry in that earlier today. But yeah, again, nothing here that's telling me these are going to reverse. And it's just a question of whether FOMC gives us that. And then, as I said already, on the indices, it's basically the same. So they've been increasingly challenging. So you can see I've got like lots of shorts on these, and that's mainly because for the most part, they don't, or at least S&P and NASDAQ don't come back for my long entries. US 30, the Dow has a couple of times, so we've had a couple of decent longs off that, and the shorts actually work better on the Dow anyway. It's a bit more reliable. Similarly, on the Russell 2000 has given, like most of the shorts kind of work okay even for scalps, and then we've got kind of decent longs, and then a long in there today. I thought I had another long in here, but even this, I guess, maybe it's just not coming back down to zones. And then the other challenge is when you do have so many zones below, which one is it going to bounce on? Like if we look at S&P, for example, which is obviously the strongest one, it's got a daily here, a 12-hour in there, then it's got a 4 or 5 day and a daily, followed by a weekly here, and then a 2 weekly much further down. Not to mention your kind of mid zones in between, and then 2-3 months demands down here that haven't been tested yet either. So, and I keep saying this, it's kind of primed to look like it's going to fall off a cliff, but it needs a catalyst for doing that. So again, we just need to see if today is going to give us that. So back to crypto. Seeing if I'm getting any viewers yet. Seems like I've had a couple, but nobody's saying hi to me as yet. So Bitcoin's obviously still in this range. So my reservations with Bitcoin, let's go up to the 3 weeks. So again, from previous streams, I've got reservations because of the general structure when I compare it back to 2021. And so I'm watching for signs that this might reverse. We have had a lot of ETF buying coming back into this. There was a lot of selling going on in the previous month. And then we've had a lot of buying coming back in now. So it's holding okay. So it hasn't quite hit this. So we've still got this 3 week demand. I mean, in fact, there's a lot of demand underneath this, and not dissimilar to the indices. It's kind of like, if it does come down, where is it going to bounce? It's got 3 month, it's got an annual all the way down here somewhere. I think it's 47k. Then I'm just looking at this 3 month chart. We've got a 3 month here that wasn't quite tested by the wick of the April candle. We've got another 3 month in there, which also hasn't been tested. We've got another 13 days before the end of the month, and we may create a new monthly demand up here, but at the moment we haven't. Then we've got a 3 week demand here, which again hasn't quite been tested. That was kind of my next level, and can't come into the 2 weeks. So again, if you follow me, you'll know that I was just kind of having difficulty again with so many possible zones. And I said, there is a possibility it just bounces on each one of them. Or the possibility it throws a red candle through everything, and that makes it hard to judge, and very similar to the indices. If they could just bounce on each zone and come down slowly, or they could just throw a giant red candle and take everything out. So this has kind of been working all right so far. We had an entry in there. I think that did get swing failed, and I've talked about that previously. There was an entry here on I think the most aggressive one on the 4 day on top of this 2 weekly. Then we came down into this 2 weekly. My next one was a 3 week, and then there's an 8 hour at the bottom of this 3 week that hasn't been tested. So really, I want this 3 week to hold. Like, this for me is the kind of critical area. If that fails, 3 week charts, the 3 week is something I look at quite a lot in crypto, and it has been quite useful if you go back to previous. I think maybe because it moves a little bit faster. So if the monthlies don't confirm, then we get, or don't confirm, or don't show anything useful, then we'll get the retests on the 3 weeklies. And if the 3 weeklies fail, so for example here, I'm not sure, maybe it's less valid these days, but here we had, 3-weekly demand held here, and then came back in. I think there's another 3 weeks somewhere down here. Maybe it's a lower time frame anyway. So yeah, at the moment, obviously we're holding this current breakout. Nothing really has happened on the high time frame. The problem we had is that then we made 2 weeks supply. So here currently we're in 2 weeks supply. So that was my short potential alert, and we're still in that, and that makes it challenging overall. And it's not dissimilar with the majors, which I'll get to. It's still, when things are still in an upward structure, this is still, obviously it's in a macro upward structure, and it's still in a local upward structure. But when you start to put in supply, then it starts to be more likely that supply is, there's a lot of people who bought in here that are, prices dropped and they've got scared and they're going to want to get out of break even. So it's possible you see a drop off that. And there's a couple of examples, I think. So here, for example, it had a 2 week supply. This is slightly different because it hadn't come into a demand like this has. So again, the challenge here is being trapped between this 2 weeks of demand and 2 weeks supply. Down here, we dropped below and then we came back up. It came quite high in that zone. So it's again possible this can go very near the top and still play out. But then again, did get a drop, and eventually I think, it came back to the wick of this candle as the 2 week demand before pushing back up again. So that's one that did play out, and I think there's, and then here, yeah. So obviously the 2021 top again came back down into 2 week demand, and then went back up into 2 week supply, and then eventually we got this sort of giant candle that came out of that 2 week supply. Wonder if that was FOMC related as well. But anyway, so you can see this structure is very similar to both this structure and this structure. I think I did find one previously that didn't work, but I can't remember where that is now. At least I'm not seeing it right now. Or maybe it wasn't even on the 2 week time frame. I don't know. Here's another example on the 2 week again, close below, wick back up, drop down again. And they don't have to drop significantly. That one obviously did drop significantly, but this one didn't, or it started a kind of a longer consolidation, and this one again, very short consolidation, drops, but it did make a lower low. So if we make that lower low, then potentially we're going to come back down into this 3 week demand. So anyway, excuse the mess on my chart. And again, if you watch previous streams, just a quick recap, as I've said, this 3 week demand is my next zone of interest. Should we drop down and play out this 2 week supply? The higher time frame, like the green, is the kind of ones I'm more confident about, I guess, or that really should be holding some sort of a bounce. This one here is a 3 month demand. When's that? 93k. My concern with 93k is that a lot of people are looking at that level, so I would expect it at least to mess around a bit if it gets there, or to front run it. But it's the 61 fib of this last up move. It's 3 month demand in there. Then there's a weekly inside that, if it drops down to the start of this last up move. And again, with the comparisons that I've done back to here, because there's resemblances I see with this retracement structure to this last move up. Like the last move up it has gone a lot higher than the previous high than this did. This only ended up with wicks above the high. But yeah, when it did drop, it dropped down almost to the bottom of this 3 week demand here. This is a 3 week on a higher time frame. So similar here, I was saying maybe, okay, so that alerts the 3 week at the top of the 3 week, and then there's the 8 hour deeper down inside it. It then didn't obviously bounce very far, and then it came back down into the zone at the bottom of the up move. So again, that would be this 3 month zone that be looking at, if we're getting a similar structure to over there. I'm saying all this, but maybe it'll just go up today with FOMC. So on top of that, lower time frame, we created a 3 day demand in here. I just feel not confident of it, and I don't know why. There's something about the structure. I have put an alert on it slightly more aggressively, actually. Like I said, I'm not confident of it, but just here, there's a 12 hour demand there. And this is more just for today, if we're going to get some wicking around and bouncing, if people are crazy enough to trade it. And the main reason I've done that is, or slightly more aggressively there, is because CME has a 4 day demand in there. And the premium, so my other concern a little bit is that the premium has dropped. So CME often operates at a large premium, or between above 500, below 1,000 normally. And as of today, so what is it right now? 115,800 versus 116. So it's dropped again today, actually. So it's just slightly above 200 there, and it was 330 when I looked at it earlier. So it's dropped again. So one of the things we've noted in the past is that when the CME premium drops off, then that's obviously, that basically is sort of potentially a lead indicator for some weakness. So just be conscious of that. But yeah, so anyway, but I did alert slightly more aggressively on the normal traditional US dollar pair, just in there, but just with a note that, obviously it's a daily demand on the 3-day right below. But if this CME pair was to come down and bounce off the top here, then that would be around 112,755. So that would be 112,555 on the normal pair, which is this zone a little bit higher than the daily and the 3-day. But yeah, be conscious on that one if you're trading this, that we are coming out of this 2-week supply. So it is possible that this just runs and at least takes out the low, left a couple of double bottoms there as well. Then to the upside, we have, so I did again throw in, so the alerts that you've seen from my previous stream anyway are, this one, which was for the whole 2-week supply, but obviously it's come up higher into that. I added the possibility of a swing fail over this level into the daily there, just as again, an interim zone for scalps. So that's obviously played out okay. And then previously I had an alert here for this daily supply, and I think I wanted it to test back over here. I'm a bit more reticent about this now. Again, it's a huge, if I go to the daily, it's a huge zone. The chances are we take out this higher at least at 119,337. And then there were a lot of liquidations at 120. So I have checked that. And at the moment, so we have local liquidations around 118, just taking out the recent high. And then if I go to the higher time frame liquidations, we do still have quite a lot at 120. On top of that, we do also have a wall there on Binance. So 120 is a decent kind of area. So it's generally looking in this area if we go up. And this is still in daily demand, so it is still in an up structure. That this may end up as a swing failure, but until it breaks this, comes down into here, then we're not looking at a swing failure. Or at the moment, it's testing. Yeah, so that's that. Now 12 minutes to FOMC. So yeah, just see what happens on there. On US dollar dominance, has been really messy as well. So this made a 3-week supply. Take my mess off it. This made a 3-week supply on this August candle. Then it wicked up and went all the way through it, swing failed it, and then closed back below. I was hoping at that point that it would then close below here and make a 2-week supply, because then that would have been cleaner. But obviously it hasn't done that, so it's just, if you look at the 2-week, it's just in this sort of tight consolidation. It's still essentially got a 2-week demand, in fact, in here. So again, I just need to see a bit more from this. Overarchingly on this, it's looking slightly bear flaggish when I look at it like that. We are in a 6-month demand here. So for, I think the 6-month, yeah, it's too much mess. Yeah, so we are in a 6-month demand here. So I have been, bullish on this dollar dominance. But, it's had a bounce already. It's had a swing fail and a second bounce here. Was unable to make a new high. So it's still possible this comes down lower inside the 6-month demand. So this was an area I was looking at for a long time, which hasn't got there. And, but maybe now will. The other thing we've got on this, like I said, Bitcoin's potentially set to make a monthly demand. If it closes, it's got 13 days, it's a while away, but, if it closes high, then it might create a monthly demand. And if that happens, then this will create a local monthly supply. So those are just things to watch out for in the next few weeks. If this does create the monthly supply, then I would expect it to go down here. But at the moment, it's just being messy and painful. But yeah, so I'm looking for confluence on that. So this has got this 3-day up here. What I would like to see for longs in that 12-hour zone that I've just talked about on Bitcoin, I would like to see this come up into here with that falling down. What was the level? the level. So yeah, with this falling down at 112,500, so if that drops down to 112,500, then have this US dollar dominance potentially come up into the 3-day supply at 4.4%. I hope that makes sense, but I mean, it's still obviously just things are consolidating and messy at the moment, so we need to see tests. And not dissimilar to the dollar, I'm just a bit loath to be longing Bitcoin in this 2-week supply. Other than if you get a good scalp entry, then fine. The daily demand wasn't that clean. Korea isn't giving much more. Korea did come down. I think it whipped just above that 3-week zone at the lows. CME could have gone lower to 2-week. There's a couple of 2 weeks and a 3-week demand in there. So again, there is draw for these potentially to go lower. There's the bigger supply. So there is that possibility. 9 minutes now to FOMC. It'd be nice if somebody came on and talked to me. I don't know. Let me see who's in the group. It doesn't matter. It's get distracting if people talk to me anyway. Yeah, so yeah, let's see what happens with FOMC in a little while. Ether has been playing relatively nicely, but except for like last week was just a pain. Or it was a low time frame pain. So it's been playing nicely on the higher time frame. So based on the alerts, the possible entries that I gave you. Well, I suppose it wasn't perfect, but so I can't remember if this one was in the last stream or not. So there was a 3-day supply in here, so I had alerted that. It did actually have quite a good reaction of it, but it was only low time frame. But what we had in here was just a complete mess. There was a 12-hour demand on the bottom, and it just kept holding. But there were so many tests on it. I think I might have alerted along on one of the tests. But I really wanted these wicks to go down and take out these lows, and I still wouldn't mind that happening. But we've now made a 2-week demand. I mean, it can, having said that, it can still come down here and hold the 2-week demand, and still take out those lows. So again, we'll see if we get that in FOMC. So the challenge here has been, so we just we made a 5-day demand by a hair, but it was really just in a sideways range or 4-day demand. So it came down all deep into that and held this daily at the base. The problem was in the interim, it then made a 5-day supply, 4-day supply, 3-day supply, etc. So I had this area alerted 3 times for a rejection on this supply here, this daily. And I think that was in the last stream. So all these wicks here. So it rejected, I think, 2 or 3 times very close. Sorry, multiple times according to this, but lower time frame. I think there were a couple of waves, 2, 3 waves up very, very close. I did keep it alerted over here, but I put a comment on it that the chances were, it's possible it will swing fail and you can still look for a swing fail. But when you've had a zone hit this close that many times, it's much more likely to run through it. So we got that reaction here of the 3-day. It still held demand, unfortunately, even though it could have come back and taken out all those lows there. It chose not to, and then got pushed back up again. And I think at that point in time, we did get some quite good buying coming back in on the Ether ETF, but it hasn't continued. So BTC has kicked back in on ETF buying. The net flows have been good, very good in fact, but Ether not so much. It's up and down. There are some buys, some sells each day. Excuse me, just taking a drink. Yeah, so now we've got this 2-week demand. So I did have an alert in here yesterday that I'll show you at the base there. So that's obviously held for now, but it's not exactly been strong. And then we made a 12-hour supply. I've got 5 minutes to FOMC. So it's made a 12-hour supply, but very weakly. So might be running through that. I have now got an alert here for the 4-hour at the top, but I was very tentative. Like I really wanted that to hit like earlier, much earlier, well at weekend, not now. And then similarly, I added an alert. Go back to the higher time frames, it's easier to see. So I added an alert here. I'm skeptical of this because of all those stops below, but again, just looking for potentially interim scalp entries. So these are the 2 kind of local scalps that I have That goes to the high time frame chart so you can see. So yeah, this 4 hour, we've still got a CME gap up here that hasn't been closed. This is not, I'm not overly confident of this now. We're coming off 2-week demand. This is not a high probability entry. I mean, maybe it'll give a scalp, so I leave it there. But I think also the CME gap didn't quite get closed. But yeah, so you can see if there's a reaction in here. And then again, if we drop down, I've added this one. Yeah, Korea has a 4-day demand down here. So I was like, again, just looking for confluence. I'm only really alerting this because it's in the larger 2-week, but it's not a zone that I'm particularly interested in. Like, I really don't like this kind of overall structure and all the stops that's left down here. But we can only see what happens. It is coming off 2-week demand, so let's just see if this gets a good reaction with FOMC coming in now. Also, we had the other problem that I had, you know, when we were down at these lows and it was doing all this messing around, is I really wanted ETH BTC to hit. Where are we? We've got 3 minutes. I really wanted ETH BTC to hit this 5-day demand and then this daily inside, and it was drifting down, and that happened, and that's what I was waiting, got the confidence I was waiting for. Unfortunately, Ether US dollar didn't take out the lows that I wanted to when this was happening. This has obviously come down quite hard. Overall, we're in this kind of giant zone that, this zone that I was looking for, the possibility of a reversal. And Ether dominance is at 6 months supply. So again, I haven't been overly confident or wanting to look for longs on Ether, and it can still go up, of course. But if I think that dominance is going to go down, then I guess that means, you know, BTC should go up more, and or other alts. So really, in kind of all this time frame and with all this messing around, I have been looking much more at alts. I had trillions of alerts coming through, yeah, so right now we've got 2 minutes, so let me just, where's my calendar? Let me just keep an eye on my calendar so I can see when the number comes in. Got 1 minute and 45 seconds, very exciting. Getting onto the lower time frame chart so I can see a bit better. So we, you know, Bitcoin at the moment is holding this daily and 12-hour demand in there. Ether, like I said, got the 12-hour supply, but it's a weak one, and it's still holding this level of the 2-week with that wick down in between. It's looking like quite nice head and shoulders here, actually. Just would have been nicer if it hadn't created that 12-hour supply. Bitcoin, like I said, we've got that, you know, the alert at 118, and then the 120 kind of area would be the area of interest if we do get a wick up here. And then if we get a wick down, and we're getting a bit of up. What was the... No, still 45 seconds to go, but we had a bit of a move there. I might also keep my S&P chart open on the other screen so I can see what's happening on that at the same time, and on the dollar. I wonder if it's going to be hugely anticlimactic after all this. So the indices have already started to pump in preparation. 30 seconds to go. Dollar is not doing an awful lot, dropping a little bit. We're getting a bit of an early pump on the dump on the dollar, and now we're getting a drop on Ether. So Ether's taken out that low. Not surprising. Not much movement at all. Looks terrible on the low time frame. I'm just looking at my buy bit open here, so I've got the lower time frame. Nasty wicks on the 3-minute chart there. So we dropped down, and now we're pumping back up again. Bitcoin didn't take out any lows actually, but Ether did. But really, it's very early. going to be rather anticlimactic, isn't it? Let me bring the dollar over here. So the dollar's taken a fall. I don't even know what the result is because the calendar froze. I'm assuming it's 4.25. Yeah. So 4.25, which was what we expected. So it's still early. So we need to see what happens with the conference because what Powell says can be more volatile than what we actually have on the chart. So I think we've got the pound is about to hit a zone of interest here. 12-hour and daily supply. Euro was already in a zone of interest. It could go and take out these highs here. Aussie dollar was also already in a zone of interest. And again, was looking for it to potentially take out the highs. So we could still get another push on these, take out the highs. Same with New Zealand dollar. So this is likely, and obviously dollar Swiss franc is continuing to drop. Dollar yen also taken out demand now. So that had a 3-weekly demand there, has been obliterated by the looks of it. Still got some space to drop on that. And dollar CAD must be falling as well. Need to do that. So a lot of things are at levels that I was looking for stop hunt or swing fails, but then they, maybe we'll get some breakouts. One error on my stream now. Yeah. So anyway, and then the indices. Okay, I would say those are pumping back up again. The Dow's gone crazy. Yeah, I mean, given this is already priced in, this is probably like stop hunting kind of move. Like, I don't necessarily think. I think people, maybe people were concerned that it wouldn't happen. Russell 2000 is coming. I had an alert for 2-day supply in here, which got us a small alert, a small move early, but also potentially might head for all-time high. Yeah, so anyway, all up, it's a little bit anticlimactic for crypto anyway. So crypto's just kind of wicked around and stayed in the same place. At least we've got sort of pumps on the indices, dumps on the dollar, pumps on euro and everything else, and crypto's just done basically nothing. So congratulations to crypto. Just saying if there's any. Anticlimactic. I've got alerts that have come in on pound, Aussie, and Aussie CAD. Yeah, Aussie there and Aussie CAD here. Just taking out that high, not necessarily an overly. There was a tiny little trend line. Sometimes I like to keep an eye on these things that I've had previously. There was a tiny little trend line stops, but then there's more up here actually. There's a couple of trend line stops on this. But when you've got trend line stops going into a 3-day supply like this, it's worth keeping an eye on. There is also a gap up there that was left quite a long time ago now. When was that? October 2024, for what it's worth. Obviously, I didn't care so much to fill it until like a year and a half later. So yeah, that's the Aussie alerts coming through slowly. Yeah, so we'll see what reactions we get. But yeah, crypto's still done very little. Dow still pumping, S&P still pumping. Nasdaq's got caught up at resistance there, but I don't think that's a confirmed. It's an 8-hour level that I've got drawn in there, but it's not a confirmed level. It's the 4-hour supply. S&P's gone straight through the same zone, but Nasdaq is getting caught up. And then obviously the Dow is really pushing. Let's see what the news is. No news reported, no new news reports on here yet about the rates. But yeah, like I said, everybody expected that anyway, so it's nothing out of the ordinary. Right, so how dull. I really was hoping we'd get a bit more from crypto on that, but really nothing. Very, very disappointing. Like I say, crypto can catch up, so it's possible there if the indices are pumping, like maybe these things are going to catch up afterwards. But anyway, until the press conference, I will have a quick look at the majors. So majors have been difficult, and they were, I think all the alerts when I last commented and reported on them, they were, awkward anyway. They were, because so a lot of them, and I think it's less the old majors that I'm showing here, but the new majors are all in these sort of giant triangles. A lot of them they had 5-day, weekly, 3-day, etc. supply above. But a lot of them had already been tested. So when they go back to those zones, they've been testing on different time frames. But when they go back to those zones, then you might see them fail. You might see the zones fail. The price runs through the zones because they've already been tested on lower time frames. So we had that a bit on the new majors. The old majors were better. So I'll just run through these quickly. It's still, again, haven't done the high time frame analysis on these yet again. So I'm putting in the zones each week. So when I say I haven't done the high time frame analysis, it means I haven't really thought through in depth where I think these things are going. We trade zones as and when they're hit, so it doesn't matter too much. So I have alerts set for zones I'm watching below if we come back down to them. Again, it gives me, if I'm on top of these, it does give me a better sense of the market. So TRX obviously had the aggressive long there, gave a little bounce, but then came back down. It was the only ones, in fact, that whenever this was 6th of September, but that week that dropped so dramatically. All the others were just holding in sideways. This took a wick all the way down inside. I think that's a 4-day or a 4-day demand. Actually came down and hit the 5-day lower. So it kind of ran through there, but then a really solid bounce. In the meantime, it had made 5-day, 4-day supply in there. And again, you can see on this, I've been slightly cleaner than some of the other ones that we've got sort of 4-day, 5-day supply up here, 3-day here that it went through. But there's a 2-day also that it went through. And then, so this is much cleaner than a lot of the other majors, but it shows the sort of challenges. So this one I was more conservative on. I just had alerted the 4-5-day supply. I don't believe that I shared this in my last stream because I think it wasn't there yet. I'm getting all my, the dollar must be dumping quite a lot now. I'm getting all my New Zealand alert, Euro alert have come in now. Bit more up movement on crypto. I had this alert, I think previously was the 12-hour supply here. I think was the last, what I last shared in my stream. So yeah, you won't have seen that one. It's coming down very slowly off there, so it could well pick up. There's a 12-hour demands and things like that in there. I've just been a bit, again, indecisive, so I'm a bit loath. Is this the top? So if this is the top, then we're expecting bearish retest and the downtrend to start. Or, is this just a retracement and this is just a bounce for more up? So I need to kind of make a decision as to whether I want to look for longs in these types of areas. I prefer it came back here and I saw a bounce in there. But yeah, so those are the, the 12-hour supply here, and then this 4-hour up the top, which is going to be my preferred short area anyway. So we'll see what happens on that. BCH, I am and have been more bullish on that. So if you look at the grayscale, moved around a bit. If you look at the grayscale BCH chart, it's got quite a big, it looks very different to this, and it's got quite a big gap to supply. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on this. Lock that, so keep moving it. It's consolidating through here. I really wanted this to come down and give a nicer entry, but it made a 2-week demand up here. So, and it had a weekly, I think, previously anyway. So I was hoping this would come down deeper in the weekly. I had an alert here for this 12-hour supply for rejection there. And in fact, it's still holding that same zone, but obviously it's messing around in here and hasn't gone very far. And then I alerted more aggressively here, 12-hour demand and this 2-week level if we get a wick back down into here, which again I was hoping would happen today, but it doesn't, not giving me anything so far. There's a nice little little triangle that's forming here. But yeah, I mean, I don't love that it's in this annual supply, but it has tested, I believe, I don't know if that's that 3 times. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge zone and it's tested multiple times already. This is also coming off annual demand. I think just again by a hair, but annual and then a monthly or 3 monthly at the base. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of bullish factors on this. Again, it's fighting supply, which makes it more challenging. But you know, at some point things have to break out, don't they? So we're getting a nice consolidation around here, and it could get a decent move. And even at this point, maybe that entry there for a possible short is probably too aggressive. But yeah, anyway, so I said to the group earlier to keep an eye on this one. You know, maybe it'll just run from here. XRP. So this, obviously, with a lot of people getting excited about the break of triangle here. Might be something to be excited about. If we look back over here, you know, it can just like bounce and then retest the triangle and then give a big up move. So it is possible we get that. It's going to need Bitcoin to help out on that. So the problem with XRP is, again, similar to Bitcoin, it created a 2-week supply. So we're up and we're testing that. So I had the alert there, and that's the big difference to this triangle that we had over here. There was no 2-week supply, and I think there was in fact no supply, whereas this, so I had that alerted. It did go, so that was the original alert there. So we've got a bit of consolidation there. So essentially, I mean, this alert is still like valid as such. You know, it's just gone higher in the zone, but you have the alert at the start of the zone to see if you're going to get an immediate reaction, and then alerts higher. You know, if it goes higher in the zone and retraces the whole last down move. So the next alert was up here, 3-day supply inside the 2-weekly zone. So, but again, it's in a triangle. It's, you know, so on all the majors that has 3-day demands, I had previously alerted this 3-day in the hope that we would get a retracement down after this candle. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. We've got another push. So I don't know if we're really going to hold these if we come back down now. And they're kind of going to be variable in structure. But for the moment, I've left them in. So again, that's the zone we want to hold. You know, actually, we want this blue zone to hold particularly, because that's the demand to the left that's holding up the whole consolidation. If we're bullish, then we've made this 3-day demand that sits on top of the blue zone. And if it's going to continue to be bullish, then I would expect that to hold a retest. So we'll see, but at the moment, again, just getting a bit of sideways, holding a daily demand. And that's the problem, that how aggressive to be. You know, if you're bullish on this, you know, there's a 3-day at the bottom here, which it could test, but it could just come off this daily and run from here still. That's, you know, the difficulties with looking at the lower time frames, and particularly when you're in extended consolidations like we've got at the moment. Getting very thirsty now from all the talking. You see Bitcoin's just dumped back down again. Ether's come most of the way back down, but not quite as badly. And finally on Litecoin, so Litecoin also had a 2-week supply here. It's, you know, a weak one. So it was a 2-week demand, and it's flipped back to a 2-week supply, but a weak one. I think I didn't alert it at level on this, but I did alert the 5-day up there inside it for a full 5-day. So that's worked out pretty nicely. And again, it's come back. I think for whatever reason, this is one of the ones that I haven't alerted, this 3-day demand down here. What that pink line is at the bottom, that might need to go. I know, so it's 4-day inside it. So yeah, this is one of the few that I haven't alerted this. And I think I was more reluctant to do this. Ripple I did because it's Ripple. I was more reluctant to do this because of the 2-week supply. So it's and because Litecoin is inclined to be weaker. So, you know, it's a long way down if it does want to drop from here. But this is looking slightly more bearish, I think, in the bigger picture. But we still need to break this demand. You know, while it's holding this 3-day demand, they can still move up. It can still make a higher high. You know, so while I'm saying looking to be bearish, it's very similar to the situation with Bitcoin. It's that if we do have major supplies, I'm looking for shorts off them. But, you know, I am conscious that we are still in an uptrend. So this is still potentially making a higher low here. It's if you look at the strength of that move compared to the strength of that move, it's a lot weaker. It's come down slower and it's left a lot of supply. So again, you know, the choppiness of supply means it could run through it. It could run and get some of the stops from this zone. You know, again, it's good that it's come down slower. Because, yeah, it's more of a consolidation rather than just a straight sell-off like that. Like any of these, you can see here is significantly slower than this. You know, this messed around before a big sell-off. You know, maybe we're going to get a lot more messing around before we get a sell-off, if we get a sell-off, or maybe the uptrend is still going to play out. So I can see there's weakness, but this is still in an uptrend despite the weakness. So yeah, that's Litecoin. Okay, that's the old majors. Then the new majors, BNB just is crazy. Okay, we're down on Bitcoin now. At least they're still holding a higher low. So BNB again, just so the trend line stops, I think put me off looking for more aggressive longs in here. But even though it sort of held, I think I then set that alert for the daily demand, but again, it never came back to test it. I'm still reticent about those trend line stops and thinking that I prefer it to go to this zone or the daily inside. And BNB is very similar now to the indices and Bitcoin as well, in that it's gone up so much and left all these untested zones below. So I haven't managed to get a long entry on this since that solid one at the start of August. Having said that, you know, that I did get longs, you know, they're not on the chart now, but I did get longs at multiple of these lows when we put in the new monthly demand. So we've had some very good longs from the bottom of this run. So if anybody held those, they've done extremely well. So the scalps are viable to get, you know, I would like to get those significant retracements. Checking messaging. Yeah, so anyway, the only alert that I had from what I was talking about, or from my previous stream, would have been this one. So it came up, and I think it's an 8-hour zone, it's a 12-hour chart. There's an 8-hour supply up here. So it came up, actually, none of these wicks quite hit it, but the alert had gone off. But in the meantime, it made this weekly demand, and I actually didn't notice that, unfortunately. If I'd noticed that, I mean, I could have said something. I don't know if anybody shorted that anyway, but obviously it took far too long. But it made the weekly demand and then pushed straight up off that. And sadly, I didn't notice, so I couldn't get any aggressive entry off there. But even then, I mean, to be fair, in my under my normal tactics, I would have wanted a retracement deeper down into this weekly demand anyway. And now it's just continuing to run. No top on BNB. BNB Link, Doggy, Ada, I think a whole bunch of them are in 6-month supply, maybe not Ada, but BNB, Link and Doggy are in 6-month supply, so on the BTC pair. So it is wise to go and have a look at that. Obviously, BNB now is probably pushed up quite significantly inside it because of this breakout. But it's wise, you know, if you're shorting something or if you're looking for shorts on this or longs at all-time high, if you don't have supply, then you can go and look at the BTC pair to try and get a sense of, you know, whether this is ready to top or not. The BTC pair is very helpful with that, and it has been in the past when we've had some crazy runs on things like KNC and waves. I remember back in the day, a lot of people were trying to short those all the way up and getting absolutely obliterated. But then if you looked at the BTC pairs, it was quite clear that they weren't ready and they weren't at supply. So the confluence of that is fairly critical when something's breaking out like this. Link. So monthly supply here, I was looking for something fair to take out that high, so we got that. I think, you know, obviously this did have some pushes up higher than I wanted it to. And in fact, from all the way down, so I got a very nice long at the bottom. Link completely threw me off because it had a 6-month supply, which I've now kind of hidden, but I had a 6-month demand, but then it flipped it to a 6-month supply. So it's just I was thinking about this structure the other day on TradFi. TradFi does this quite a lot on the weekly, that it closes above, making a demand, then it goes back and closes below, flipping it to supply, but then it goes straight back through it. So this is a pattern I've become a lot more familiar with, but all of this is weak. Well, it's a stronger demand than it is supply, but the supply was weak. So I can say that, but I know I want to leave these patterns alone from now on. If this red candle doesn't close significantly below, I need to kind of make some rules around it, I think. Then it can run straight back through it. And this is a 6-month chart, so Link is just, it's still holding the 6-month supply because the wick at the top of the 6-month is here. But obviously, yeah, if you shorted down at 14, you would have been underwater quite a long time now. This just looks very similar to the others chart and total 3, etc., doesn't it? Check if anybody's saying anything in the group. I said, why somebody come and watch my stream? It's good to know. Somebody said they're watching a Charlie Sheen documentary. If that's more interesting than my stream, okay, fair enough. I'll take it. So yeah, so anyway, I have set an alert. So I was looking for shorts on this because of just where it is. Like you can see where it is in the overall structure. It can go higher, and as I said a minute ago, for Litecoin, it's exactly the same here. This is actually very like Litecoin on a lower time frame. This can still continue up. But we had a strong move up here. We had a strong move up here. We've had a much weaker move here. So I was more inclined to kind of go, okay, maybe this is ready to do a bigger drop. I still very much need to see the reaction on this zone when it comes back there. But now being up in monthly supply, worth looking for shorts. So I think I had an alert set. So this wouldn't have been again in the last stream. I did, made a 2-day supply here. So I did set an alert in that. And it has had a good reaction off there. Still holding, but again, still holding the upward structure. So just looking to see if these are going to start to break down, I guess. Then we get the ones that look more similar to each other. So I think all the ones I've done so far are the ones that actually have some differences in their in the structures. Another 7 minutes until power starts peaking, and then we might see some more action in the markets. So I think Doggy, Sol, and Ada all had this monthly demand here. So I'd commented that, I put short entries in, but that they weren't necessarily going to be good short entries because of coming off the monthly here. And I think Ada and Sol broke higher. I feel like Doggy has now, but didn't on that previous wave. So it's worth doing. So that can, that is worth considering. So you see here that at this point in time, if we compare these two charts, Ada and Doggy both hit that monthly demand at the same time. Doggy had they both had good bounces out of it, but Doggy still made a lower high here, retraced back into the daily demand at the start before the second up move. Ada, on the other hand, went straight up, had a small reaction off the equivalent zone to Doggy, but then went up and straight away took out the high. Then again has come back into daily demand, but a higher daily demand than the Doggy equivalent. Managed to get a long entry in there as well, and has come up and is still struggling making a lower high here. On the other hand, Doggy with this last up move has gone further, and it's just the differing structures across the market. So Ada, and this is why again I say I really need to look at what the higher time frames, like the macro on this, and what the BTC pairs are doing now. I do know, as I said, that this is most of them are in 6-month supply, a bunch of them, not all of them. So here, I thought there was one other actually. I remember this. So I had an alert set here for 12-hour supply, so it's still in it. It's gone way higher than the original alert. I did try for a lower high here because I think it made an 8-hour supply there, but it just flipped it. I'm not sure exactly where that was, but it's just flipped that and gone higher from there. So I feel like there was one of the other majors. Most of them I have been not yet looking for the re-entries from this run, for the ones when they've hit their highs, partly because I got busy over the weekend, and partly because it just wasn't ready when this was before the weekend, and then the weekend has started retracing, obviously. But even then, they haven't made very good supplies above, And this, for example, has an 8-hour in here, but it hasn't, like, I'd rather see this with an 8 or 12 hour at the top for a more confident short back down again. In the meantime, they've also or a few of them have made these new 2-week demands. So you can see ADA here is holding the top of that 2-week demand. So I really need to think this through as to whether this is still going to be bullish. Again, the alert on this that I had was on 3-day demand. Now, more confident because it's in the 2-week. Don't love that we haven't tested this 2-day down here. So I've got a couple of alerts on this, and then the monthly should it get retested. It'll be worth watching again to see if we get a bounce. So yeah, ADA could go from here at the moment. Like, I'm bullish on this in the same way I am on Ether. Like, it's not ideal. It's not made a higher high before making this 2-week demand, but it is a 2-week demand, so I don't want to short against it. So no new short entries on that for the moment. And really, yeah, you'd be looking for this to get all the way up there. And what that is, a 3-week supply. Yeah, you'd be potentially looking for this to take out this whole monthly zone and get up into this 3-weekly supply. There is a 3-week demand down here as well if it does come back there. But again, I'm not, it's rock and a hard place in monthly supply, so I don't really want a long, but then with a 2-week and 3-week demand below coming off a monthly demand, I don't really want to short either. So it's just these things just becoming nice triangles, and if you want to trade them, then you have to kind of guess which way the triangle is going to break. Or the consolidation. It's not necessarily the cleanest of triangles here, but you've got to guess which way the consolidation is going to break first. And the difficulty is, as I've said on others, is this a kind of a down move and then a bearish flag retracement before the next down move? And that's why I have to look at the bigger picture. Is that a possibility at this point, with this whole thing also being a bear for the bigger picture? So anyway, there you go. There's the bearish scenarios anyway, and let's hope that doesn't play out, but we'll see. And I need to watch. And Doggy is basically the same. It's very interesting when you look at on the linear chart, you see how big the moves are, and you look at it on the log chart and it looks much more insignificant. But as I said, Doggy is, just the same as what I drew with ADA. We've had this big move up. We've got this move here, which to me looks quite corrective. And again, more corrective here. So is this going to take a dive back down to this support at the bottom of the range, having hit the top of the range, and this is just a bear flag, or even worse, lower? Take that one off then. Or is this consolidating for a massive breakout? And that's, for me, I'm just quite unclear on that. So in the immediate future, we have 2-week demand on this. I have the alert again, like on the 3-day demand inside that. Doggy was one of the ones that did go through my alerts, and 2 of them. So this was an alert here. So when I look at this with hindsight, that probably wasn't the wisest alert, given the consolidation, the way it was moving here. Over here wasn't a strong supply. We're coming off a monthly demand. This, with hindsight, wasn't a great entry or a great alert, even though I think it was a 5-day supply or something like that. So it's you're sort of torn between timeframes, and then really having to drill down and look at the lower timeframes to give a better sense of whether you're going to get a breakout. Then this one was just for a lower high there. I always think those are worth watching, but again, too much consolidation before it tested it. And then my alert did go, I think. I thought this alert went. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe it's still there actually, but sometimes they don't delete. But yeah, to be fair on Doggy, I always wanted this monthly zone to get tested. So I still feel like this could do more. Although having said that, I was looking back here and I wonder if maybe it's not the cleanest when it is testing the zones that you want, or not testing, as the case may be. So in a perfect world, I'd look for a short up there if it comes back there, and it does make me slightly more reluctant. So we do have an 8-hour supply here and an 8-hour supply here, but these make me slightly more reluctant to look for early shorts because we're in an overall 2-month supply. We have taken out this high, like maybe we're just going to drop like a stone here. But in a perfect world, I would like it up in there. Question is it going to come down ADA's sitting on this level. Is it going to come down there, or to my alert at the 3-day here first? We could get a drift down into here before that move up. But yeah, it makes me reluctant to look for shorts on this right now anyway, for that same reason. So overall, we've got hide those drawings. I want to keep that on ADA so I can look at it later. But yeah, so ADA and Doggy both have new 2-week demands. So does Link, but I think Link had that a while ago. And those I've got alerted. Both ADA and Doggy have alerted the 3-day inside. ADA may be front running me as we speak. Doggy possibly could front run me as well. So it is up to you if you want to look at the top of the 2 weeks as they hit. Or wait for the alerts that I've got on the 3 days below. For me, I just monitor them, and if I see the 2 weeks hold how we've got here on ADA, then maybe I'll reconsider looking for a long a bit sooner if I see this do a bit more consolidation through here. BNBs obviously just keeps going up. You feel free at the moment to long any demand. I know most people, for some reason I haven't got any indicators on this, but let me just copy. So a lot of people use the EMAs when they want to FOMO into something. So when it comes back, I think people are using the 4-hour, the hourly, and the 15-minute. So pick your poison. But when it breaks the blue, then it goes to the green, or it goes to the brown. But you can see it's when it wants to bounce off the blue, if it's being aggressive, it will. The blue is I think it says 20, 50, 100, and 200. But yeah, choose your EMA, and then you can, if it's got a zone there, then better. But look for your lower time frame demands just to get into that if you really want to buy the trend. So my method isn't really buying a trend. Like, I still want to wait for a retracement, and if I miss it, I miss it. But I'd much rather be looking for the big moves that we get off the lows and following them up, but on the bigger retracements, rather than trying to FOMO in up here, because for me in the past that has never worked well. BTC still running sideways. It's 7:33 now, so I guess the conference has started. So we need to see a bit more. So my group is saying 25 basis points with 50 more coming this year. Not sure if that was said in the conference. Again, I think that's what people are thinking. Let me have a look at what TradFi is doing again quickly. Okay, so yeah, big wick up on S&P as we retrace immediately. The same NASDAQ. It's retraced straight back down again. Russell took a big wick up to the previous all-time high, but not the current all-time high. And as you found resistance on there before also dropping back down. So we're seeing obviously retracements on those, but very early days. I mean, we need to see. So you get the initial the initial reaction of the news, but then I do need to still see supply and demand form to see what's going to happen, or to judge whether it's going to continue or not. So here we've got the low on the dollar. So the dollar's just taken out the all-time low. As I said, I had all those alerts. I'm back through them quickly. So sorry, I don't know what happened there. Okay, so we had pound went into 12-hour daily supply up here, so it's actually gone up to the daily in there. And has wicked into there. Euro, as I thought, has taken out the stops at that monthly level. Aussie dollar the same, wick taken out stops at that monthly, so monthly high, I believe. Or a little trend line stops into the 3-day supply there, which is what I wanted to see on that. So now it's just going to see if we have continuation. Like, is that going to? One of the people I follow says they thought it was going to wick like this and then retrace the rest of the week. So we shall see. I still need to see. Obviously, this is wicked here, but I still need to see this breaking demand, and to see what happens. Because my other concern with at least if we're looking at Aussie and New Zealand, so generally Euro Oz does the opposite to Aussie US. So if Aussie US is coming down, that's fine, but Euro Aussie is hitting this 3-week supply, and so it can go higher inside it. It's obviously a big zone. And in the case of Euro Aussie, it is a retest of monthly demand down here. So I had ones at the lows here, but if this 3-week is to play out, I'm not sure what that means for, that could mean the Aussie US has continuation. So the same on New Zealand, that's come up into 5-day supply up there and wicked straight back down again. Dollar Swiss franc is still below the low there, so I need this to come back up over again to be remotely wanting to buy that. Dollar yen is just a big wick taking out all those lows, still into weak demand. I wanted this a bit lower, but I guess we'll see. Yen has some news also on Friday, so we can wait. That's probably going to affect the cross pairs as well as the dollar yen a lot more. What else? And dollar CAD also, just a wick down. Let's see if it's taken out that low. CAD yen also took a really big wick down, but again didn't quite hit my alert. So as you can see, there's just lots of potential swing failures across the board. I mean, we'll see if we get continuation or if they do end up as swing failures, but this is, certainly we're in a point where we could see a bigger reversal for TradFi. Whether we see that on the indices as well, situation uncertain. They don't obviously have to follow or do the same thing as the currencies. Although we are seeing Aussie 200 is weakened off, UK 100 is weakened off, and Euro 50 is weakened off. So maybe we'll see the US indices start to follow that, and also possibly the Japan 225 and is that the Nikkei? Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so back to, so I think I finished the new majors. The first layout of the new majors. So then second layout, we've got Solana, Near, Atom, and DOT. So DOT. So we've got DOT, so it's in a huge 6-month supply here. It's got a 3-month or a monthly sitting off the bottom of that. So this is the challenge. So like I've seen, again, the person I follow who said that he thought the dollar would wick down and go back up again, who I sort of value his opinion in my pound yen hitting supply. Also come up quite hard. While I value his opinion on TradFi, I am a lot more skeptical on crypto. But maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I mean, well, to be honest, I've just seen him be wrong too many times on crypto. Let's be honest. If we look at this DOT chart, though, it had a clear support here, and it has fallen below it, and it's coming back up and testing it. So you can argue. I know the people who trade, ranges, etc., will say it's reclaiming it. So yes, if we say the orange or the green is the low of that range, it's come back up above that. The problem we then have, though, is that it has all this supply. So for me, while we have a reclaim of the range low as such, being back above here, I'd rather see a kind of a monthly close up here first, though. I also want to see the sellers that broke that low taken out. So, if this was a lower time frame and on a monthly chart, really what you want to see here is a big move up, and then you buy a retest, because that means, it's taken out the low of the range. You want to take out the high of the range. When it does that, then it, it leaves new demand here, and then you go retest, and then that's when you're trading that bigger picture. But obviously here, but if we're guessing, if we're longing here expecting for that now, then it's pure guesswork. But how do you get in? So that's the challenge on this. So we have a 6-month supply here. It has closed below. It's got a 6-month up here anyway. It's closed below this level. It's not an ideal 6-month supply because it's an offset one. It's in 3-month supply now. It's already tested down and taken out the low. So these are the sellers that wanted to take out the low. So we're just coming back up to retest those. From a higher time frame perspective, I can't be bullish on this. There is the benefit that it hit the 3-day demand at the low, where we got long entries at the low. So if anybody got in there, they can hold that, and that's great. But it's still very early days on this. So I'd like to see it create a 2-month or a 3-month demand to be more confident. So in the case of this, and what we do have on a lot of the majors again, is that we did make these 3-week demands. I think the weaker majors, this sheet, Atom has that 3-week. I'm not sure about the others actually. I think it might just be Atom and Dot. So it's got this 3-week demand. It came down very deep inside it and has gone up again. You can say it's really just between a rock and a hard place. It's got a whole bunch of equal highs here, so it could go up higher there. It has held this 3-week demand. It's also got a 2-week demand in there. And it's tapped off the top of a weekly. So again, this might still just be building up consolidation for being bullish, even if it does just get up to here. It's broken out this local trend line. And it's been good. We have got longs at most of the lows on this. So yeah, so for now, 2-week demand. If you want to aggressively long this, feel free. I just don't like this kind of crawl up we have. So when we see moves up, they tend to be bigger. Like, we don't normally do little crawls up and have that resolve in a good way. It's possible. Maybe here, like when we're bottoming them, we did have a crawl here, and then it finally had a big green candle, and then you could get in for the decent move up. But that's a long time ago. So, but that's again my reticence with this is the trend line stops, and my reticence with many holds. Trend line stops left below, coming up into major supply here. But yeah, we'll trade until we see things broken. So if you want to aggressively long this on the 2-week demand in there, or the weekly, feel free. My alert currently is on that 3-day, which I would like to see it come down into there, and then I'll see if it can make a higher high off that bounce. So this one, again, short alert failed there. I'm not sure if that was just on a daily supply. I've got a feeling that was just a daily supply. I just had a good consolidation. Then I had an alert for the lower high, similar to what I showed for Doggy. And that's kind of given a decent bounce down, or a decent move down into 12-hour demand there. So it needs to see a little bit more from that. I'll do Solana last. See, Bitcoin's now starting to drop again. Again, I remain a little bit on the fence about. So what I hadn't noticed and I missed at the end of last month, like most of these didn't really do anything. And I think the ones that made monthly demands was the month before, but Atom actually flipped this monthly supply here to demand last month. Not ideal, but I hadn't noticed that until a few days ago. So now I'm more inclined to think, okay, let's maybe try and be more bullish on this. The difficulty is, again, I still wanted it down here. This would be my preferred long entry. It's also running into 3-month supply in here. I think that's a big brown zone as a 3-month supply. But very much trying to make a triangle here. It had that 3-week demand similar to Dot. But then also had a weekly supply. So it's, again, all the competing zones and competing time frames. And this is becoming very much clearer as a triangle across the lows, bigger triangle across the highs, but even triangle across these highs. Like that. Let's just reply to that text message I got a minute ago. Okay, yeah, so just a little triangle here, and I don't want to preempt which way it's going to break. I like that it's got monthly demand below, but I don't like that it's got 3 monthly supply above. I can see Bitcoin starting to drop again. And these are potentially all going to drop hard if Bitcoin does decide to drop. So I did have the alert again on the, I think actually I stayed with this. This had a 3-day demand, but I went on the daily demand at the base of it. I hadn't moved it up. Did get a bounce off that, but hasn't gone very high. So how is our paying market? I'm not sure what Powell was saying, but apparently he's saying bad things. Anyway, yeah, so the alert that I had for the weekly supply here, it's gone significantly higher inside, but essentially had held that overall zone for a short, and now is down here for a long, but I don't love it. So this really, my preference is for longs down there on this. you may not get them because we have this monthly demand, but there's just too much chop in here. If it doesn't hold here, then this zone's already been tested. All the zones have already been tested. So I don't want to be looking for longs on already tested zones. However, if you see them hold, particularly this zone, probably this around the $4 mark, then potentially you can get a move up off this. So yeah, I'm cautiously bullish on this because of the monthly demand, but knowing we're still coming out of the 3-month supply. And I've seen many of these just run straight through if they're hitting the major supplies. So I've been running through alts in general. So many of the alts made weekly demands, 2 weekly demands, like last week, like similar to what I've shown on some of these. And so many of them are just running straight back through them now. They're not holding. So that's Atom. And Near was always the one that I wanted to be bullish on because we come off this monthly demand at the base there, but it's unfortunately also continued to be weak, making this enormous sort of trend line triangle. And so this one had a 2-week supply. Tried to close a 2-week demand. Maybe it kind of is closed just above this level by a hair there, so slightly dubious. So it did have a 5-day supply, and it went and ran through it. And then I noticed that it had a kind of a couple of equal highs there. So I threw in a second alert for that, just to see if it could get a swing fail off that level. So that worked quite well, and it picked up this 5-day level, which is not a demand for me as a support. I'm kind of inclined, I think, also to throw in a 3-day alert on this as well. I'm not sure why I didn't previously. Makes me nervous when I haven't done previously, because then I sort of think maybe I had logic for not doing it at the time, and now I've forgotten what that logic is. But perhaps it's nice to kind of just talk to myself, and not have the distraction of having questions. It's kind of a bit dull. It's nicer when people come on and talk to me. Yeah, anyway, so this is still in 2-week supply. I do like this consolidation. I do feel like this consolidation might want to break out. But it's still early in the game. So, but I think that one of all of the ones I've seen so far is probably worth keeping an eye on, that 3-day demand in there. And then again, this 1-week demand, if it comes back down. So these wicks didn't quite hit. There was I think a 4-day demand in there and a weekly demand. I've had the alert set twice and it went both times, but you see the wick came just above there. It just tapped into the 4-day there, but like neither of them got down to this weekly demand. So if it comes down here again and you do see that swing fail in there, then that's certainly an entry on this. And then the short side, I've got nothing until not really this one a breakout at this point. I'm quite liking it. Need to look at the BTC pair on that as well. The difficulty with something like Near and even Atom, if Atom does decide to become a bit more bullish, I'm trying to think any of the others, is given all the majors seem to follow each other. I mean, you can get that one outlier in the exception, so maybe they can be an exception. But when the difficulty is when they follow each other, if all of the others of supply or they've broken out already and they're ready to retrace, then the problem is, are you going to just not get the breakouts on the ones that are ready and will look ready and waiting? Because the whole market by that time is going to drop. Or maybe I'm completely wrong and, Sol is going to make a new all-time high from here. So I think Sol did make a new 2-month demand at this level here. So we had the monthly, I remember where the bounce was now, too many. We had this monthly bounce here, so that's now given a strong move up. It also made a 2-monthly demand at the same, or in the next candle, I think. That is confirmed, isn't it? Yeah, so it made a 2-monthly demand on the close of the August candle, July, August. And now we're in September. So it hasn't come down and tested that level yet. So while I wasn't loving Sol previously, and this structure again approaching all-time high, There now. Your extra levels in there can get deleted. Do that. Again, another reason why I have to think this through. Like, I'm not sure if Solana is just going to push up more from here. It's kind of come up 2 times since these lows down here. It is holding monthly demand there. I think this didn't make an annual. I know it did make an annual, and that's a level. I think that was that one I just deleted by mistake. Yeah, so this did make an annual demand. That's a huge zone. Obviously, it can come all the way back down in here if it wants to and still retain that annual demand. And that'll be a sort of 90% drop. But yeah, let's see if this does manage to break out. It's come up quite high. It is still in monthly supply, but because it's made the monthly demand and the 2 monthly demand, I've like hidden that monthly supply because those are more recent. So this now has got weekly demand here. So I do have so I've alerted. So it's got the 3-day, same as everything else, got the 3-day and then the weekly demand. It does have that 2-month there. Got the similar challenge, like which zone is it going to, if the whole market does drop, this could still wick very heavily down inside that zone if it wants to. So I've still got a 2-day demand, a little bit like ADA, I think, on this actually, that it's got. So it's got the higher time frame. This is the immediate demands that you really want to hold, but it could easily take a wick through. It's got the 2-month level there, and then this daily already alerted inside it. So a few different levels it can go to if it wants to retrace this whole wave, or if it's just going to retrace up 61%. And I'm sorry, I haven't said in this stream, but what I normally say is, do some sort of a fib. The 61% fib is around that 2-month level, and maybe you want to wait. You want to wait until it does a more significant retracement. Hi, Obina. You're short soul. Now, yeah, that's fine. So yeah, well, yeah. So did it hit 3-day supply there? Yeah, it did hit the 3-day supply. So yeah, on the short side, I don't think I've actually gone through all the alerts on these, but short side we had a 2-3-day supply here, so it did kind of just had a mini consolidation, then went through and up to the 3-day. And this was always the difficulty here, that we had so many zones coming down. It was which ones it was going to, for at least a couple of them did get decent reactions, but now ultimately it's come up to the top one. So we're now at that final critical point as to whether it's going to make a lower high or whether it's going to be able to break out. But yeah, it's an absolute fine place to look for shorts up here. I hope you shorted the high, Obina, rather than later. And gave a nice retest on 12-hour supply there. I actually was thinking about putting, actually it didn't quite hit this 3-day. I was thinking about putting an alert for this 12-hour yesterday, but I think I was still just being a bit too reticent about what the market was doing. Now I made an 8-hour supply and rejected off that. So it's got a decent gap to, even if it does hold 223 in the most recent 8-hour demand there, it's got a decent gap to the major demands anyway. So worth holding that, see what the reaction is there, or taking some profit there and potentially getting back in if you get the lower high after that. But yeah, same on this. So I've got that 3-day / weekly zone of interest on the long side, and nothing else on the short side. Although I will, if this does appear to keep going, I'll end up putting another alert on all-time high just to see. So yeah, so far on the long side, the only thing that's hit is Atom, other than TRX a few days ago, which was a differing structure. But from the most recent fall, we've had Atom hitting, and I'd like to be bullish on Atom. I would like to be bullish on NEAR. Less keen on being bullish on DOT just because it's got so much supply above, but at least that has hit something at the low, whereas Atom hasn't. So everything has kind of pros and cons. Anyway, it's coming up to 8 o'clock. Let me just see what. Okay, so now we're getting the kicking in of the Powell talking on indices. So fairly big drops on S&P and Nasdaq now, but still just coming into 12-hour, 8-hour demands, whichever they are there. Might get a breakdown here on J225. Huge drop on Russell as well. Nasty wick up and big drop. So yeah, I'm going to have to look at to see just how these close, and are they going to close with any sort of shortable supply for tomorrow? See, big bounce. So whoever I was watching on the Jerome Powell says the Federal Reserve can no longer say the job market is solid. Well, that's very observant to Powell. I think I could have said that last week. Anyway, delete all of those lines actually. So yeah, some actually really solid. So if you're trading FX, you've done quite well today because I gave quite a few entries that kind of worked out on these. Pound and euro dropping, Aussie big drop, really nice drop on Aussie CAD. Euro Aussie is obviously going to go a little bit higher in this zone. Like that's still my concern. If Aussie US is going to go down, then you shouldn't look to short Euro Aussie particularly. You can see like the Euro New Zealand is now going up higher in the zone. Finally getting a bit of a bounce on dollar Swiss franc and some breaking zones. Need to see how these close. So if these close only 8-hour supplies, then I'll be looking for shorts tomorrow on the majors. Big bounce on dollar yen. So pretty much what we expect. What we expected. I wasn't overly clear about it, but it seemed like we were going to get wicks up to take out the spikes, and then we just didn't know if we were going to get the reversal or not, but that we have got to that. And dollar CAD, I'm guessing, is okay. So yeah, dollar CAD has come into 5-day supply. This is so this is the thing. We're now seeing things start to hit. It's just a question if we're going to get the big reversals, then obviously these are going to break. So that dollar CAD entry was a risk entry anyway because it's such a large zone. So we can still go up to the top of this zone and retain the 5-day supply downward structure. Although it's very much sideways, but if the 5-day supply is going to play out. So I had that in the alert saying it's a large zone, just watch the level, else there's the daily inside near the top, so it could still go all the way up there if it wants to, so just be a little bit careful of that one. Else we're just getting this wicking around and these aren't going to break down and this will just close back in range, so I guess we'll see. Jerome Powell says the Federal Reserve doesn't feel the need to move quickly on interest rate cuts. Well, that's going to pump the dollar. Okay. $100 was tapping the zone that I wanted it to be. Yeah, so still so they dropped hard, but they're just still getting bought back up relatively quickly. So we really just need to see how these close. Let's see what Bitcoin is doing again. So decent drop again on this. So what I'm looking for on Bitcoin is if it's going to make a new daily supply or something. Making quite a few things out there. Ether still holding. 2-week zone. So Ether, like I said earlier, I wanted a bit lower. Like really, I wanted this to hit at the same time as Ether, but that's not looking. It's looking like Ether's going to be a bit closer, presuming they hit it all. But we really just need to see how these close. Like if the dollar is going to close, Bitcoin is going to close at a daily supply, and if dollar dominance is going to close a daily demand. CME will close sooner, so got 2 hours till CME closes, and at the moment it looks like it's set to close a daily supply, but we still need a little bit more time on that. And Ether is not going to close a daily supply, but it's still holding that 2-week demand. Yeah, so Ether hasn't really done much at all. But anyway, so I've covered all the majors. Oh, big bounce on TSD there. Rather annoyingly, slightly front running my long entry. Very nice bounce on CYC. So these are the alerts that have come in today. NYX is still pushing. It's an alert for a daily supply, but it also runs straight through high up in the daily supply. So there was a 4-hour at the level, and then a 1 hour that it ran up really quickly straight into the 1 hour, gave it a little reaction, and now it's just consolidating. We had a short entry yesterday, but it's just holding that zone. Coffee was just me trying to add in or do different alt alerts. So ATH, Clippy, and Live are all potential just short scalp entries. CST, just see what happens. We get the test there. So I'm trying to think. I don't know if I should. Yeah, it's late now, so I don't really want to do any more alts right now because I'm going an hour and a half. But I might try. Oh, and very excitingly, my TikTok got returned. So I started TikTok very briefly. I did about 3 weeks on it in February or January, and then they banned me, and then they didn't accept my appeal. So me being me, I went hard, and I went to court. Going to court's a bit too strong, but I didn't go to court. But I used there are various European lawyers you can use that for free will fight your case for you. And I actually didn't think anything was going to come of it. It took so long. So I followed up, and then apparently TikTok lost it conveniently. Maybe they don't expect you to follow up. And so I followed them. So they followed up again. And then finally, actually in July, I only notice now because I don't check that email address very often. They reinstated my account, and they've given me access to live TikTok, which I didn't have previously. So I need to try and figure out how I can do a live jointly on YouTube and on TikTok in the hope to get a bit more exposure. So now, and I also need to cut some shorts to be able to, or record some shorts to be able to post those onto TikTok as well, to try and improve exposure from that front. But yeah, so if anyone uses TikTok, please add me. Elisa, I think it's Elisa_crypto_real, because there was already an Elisa Crypto, which is very irritating. And a bunch of different Elisa cryptos, like a 1, 2, 3, and all those sorts of things, who apparently have nothing on their profiles as anything remotely crypto at all. So it's even more annoying. Like if they were crypto, I'd kind of go, okay, I'm competing against another Elisa who does crypto, but they don't appear to be. But yeah, Elisa Crypto Real with underscores. Please follow me on TikTok if you're a TikTok user. Try and get in with the young people, and I'll keep the old people on YouTube, like myself. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, hit me up. I think there's only Albina still here, but Bitcoin retracing again now. Yeah, so that was very anticlimactic FOMC, but I've given you all the levels of interest. So yeah, that's that. Not much more to say today. Okay, so we have the final thoughts. Are we looking for that whether we're going to get a daily close that gives us a new supply on Bitcoin and a new demand on US dollar dominance? Ether, I still want to be bullish because it's got too big demand, but it's very hard to be bullish when I think Bitcoin is more inclined towards being bearish, at least locally. So yeah, my reticence with Bitcoin is Bitcoin's coming off 2 week demand and in 2 week supply. So Bitcoin, I'm just indecisive, I guess. Ether is still bullish while it's still got this 2 week demand. So we're looking for a move up on that to potentially take out the high with this possible interim short entry up there, just to look for the reaction. It comes down a bit lower, look for that area, and then else weekly, 2 weekly zones down below. Monthly shows in a couple of weeks, and we'll see what happens with that. So yeah, I hope you all have a good evening, and I will try and do an alt stream tomorrow, I think. Seems like a good day, if I can get my shit together in time. So yeah, have a good night. Ciao.